Welcome. I would like to call to order tonight's March 11th, 2026. It's a regular school committee meeting, but it's also a special meeting where we are having an interview tonight for our superintendent search. This is a little awkward, so sorry I'm stumbling over my words. We're meeting tonight in LGI 1 at high school, and if you would all join me in standing for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, so Mr. Cutlass is joining us tonight remotely, and we have Dr. Nancy Milligan, who's here with us as our candidate, who's joining us. So welcome, Nancy.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Now I'm a little rusty on this, so please excuse me if I'm out of practice. So we're going to start with our announcement, which is the special school committee meeting will be televised, recorded, and may be viewed live on Comcast Channel 22 and Verizon Channel 34, on youtube.com/Tewksbury-TV. Under the open meeting law, the public is permitted to make an audio or video recording of an open session at a public meeting. At this time, I would ask if anyone is recording tonight's meeting to please identify themselves. Okay, and seeing nobody that's saying they're recording, we're going to move on. We have put together some questions for Dr. Milligan. And giving some background to what we have done to get to this point, we have met with several stakeholders with Dr. Milligan prior to this. We have invited her to meet with students, with staff, with our community. We've asked for some, feedback from people in terms of, what their thoughts were. Very candid conversations, and it's been very interesting. So that's been a nice process to get to this point. So we're not just having our first conversations at this table. So each of our members have put together their own question for Dr. Milligan. We're going to try to keep the answers to around 5 minutes. I would like to welcome Dr. Milligan to maybe give us an opening statement of anything you'd like to share about yourself. And
thank you.
Just start.
I have prepared an opening statement for tonight. So I want to start with good evening, and I want to begin by saying thank you to the search committee and to Mrs. Garabin and the community for the care and thoughtfulness that you have brought to this process. Public interviews like this one reflect a community that takes its school seriously, and that matters to me. For the audience, my name is Dr. Nancy Milligan. My resume will highlight my 26 years of experience from a classroom teacher to a reading specialist and coach, a director of curriculum, and for the last 10 years as an assistant superintendent, most notably for the Tewksbury Public Schools for the last 2 years. That last part really matters. I'm not coming in from the outside with a generic vision and a promise to listen. I have been listening to our principals, our teachers, our families, and our students. I know it has been built here under Superintendent Regan's leadership, and I know the work that has started through our strategic plan. It is purposeful and data-driven. I've sat in these buildings, worked alongside the leadership team, and invested myself in the success of Tewksbury's students. This is not an audition for me, but it is a commitment. My doctorate that I finished last year deepened my conviction in that educational equality is not achieved through good intentions. It is achieved through coherent systems, evidence-based practices, and the courage to look honestly at our own data. My work across curriculum, instruction, assessments, special education, professional development, emergency management, labor relations, and fiscal stewardship has prepared me for the full scope of what this role demands. But preparation is not the same as purpose. My purpose, the reason I have stayed in this work for across 26 years, is the belief that every child who walks into the Tewksbury schools deserve an absolute best. Not our best when conditions are easy, but our best when the budget is tight, when the mandates are many, and when conversations are hard. Tonight I look forward to showing you not just what I know, but how I think and how I lead, and why I believe the next chapter for the Tewksbury Public Schools is one worth building together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And so something I should have shared also as well. Dr. Milligan, and if it's okay, I call you Nancy. Yeah, I'll call you Nancy. Is as our current assistant superintendent for the district as well. Has been with us now for 2 years, and you come to us with 12 years experience as an assistant superintendent. So I'm going to start with Chris. Mr. Moncada, you have our first question.
Sure. So, Dr. Milligan, thank you. Appreciate you being here. So, Tewksbury Public Schools has experienced success and stability under Superintendent Regan. Yet every transition in district leadership brings a new opportunity for growth and change. Based on the time already spent in our district, your knowledge of our data, and the community feedback you've received thus far, what may be some ways you will apply your leadership style and skills to manage this transition and to strategize and prioritize the ongoing growth of our school district for our students, staff, and families?
Thank you. As I listen to this question and think about the transition, first I would like to thank Ms. Terry O'Regan for her leadership and having the opportunity to work with her for the last 2 years to understand where we are coming from and where we need to go. One of the things that, as I think about this transition, is that I want to elevate what currently exists, but I want to also co-create what needs to happen in the next chapter. I want to honor the foundation of our strategic plan and all the hard work of our staff, community, all the stakeholders to this time, but I also want to listen before acting. As I think about the time already spent in the district, and you have asked some of the ways that you'll apply your leadership style and skills to manage this transition, I definitely believe in a collaborative process, and I think that if you've worked with me either from the school committee and or from the staff right now, you'll know that I truly live that piece. I would say one of the examples that I would look at highlighting my leadership style would be to look at some of the new advisory councils that we put into the strategic plan that truly allows the voice of our staff in some of the high priority areas within our district. As I prioritize the ongoing growth for our school district and our students, I will continue to work on aspects of the audit, the special education audit, that identified that we need tight coupling but defined autonomy. Through that special education audit, we were identified as a district of schools, not a school district. We've started that work from that audit, and I do believe that that is the key work, because as we think through the work that has to happen in our district, we are always thinking about the journey of the student across the multiple transitions. As I prioritize the ongoing work, I will also continue to prioritize all the work around the inclusive practices to make sure, like I said in my opening statement, that every student feels that sense of belonging in our district, and that is our charge. I believe continuing with the district's strategic plan, which does call out a multi-year plan, is solid through the big buckets of work. Everything is grounded in data as we move forward. We continue to look at strengthening our instructional practices. We continue to look at building and bolstering our communication methods. And through the community, we are continuing to look at our facilities to ensure that students feel when they come to school that the facilities are both safe and appropriate for the learning of our students today. All of this is based on my core values, which, as I said, is about equity and access for all students that we should be focusing on. And when I look at prioritizing that ongoing growth, we have to continue to look at that curriculum coherence between the buildings, because you will always hear me say the journey of the student. So I'm hoping that through my leadership style of collaboration and listening, maintaining the strategic plan, and really digging into that work to elevate what exists and co-create the next chapters, that my leadership in the district will be able to put people's minds at ease through this transition, along with other major transitions within the district.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, Jamie, Mr. Cutlass.
Thanks, Dr. Milligan. I don't have a question. I can't get it right in front of me, so Richard, if you have it there, could you read my question?
Sure. He had a very specific question, data related, right, Mr. Cutlass?
Yes.
As superintendent, how would you work with principals and instructional leaders to ensure that classroom instruction is consistently improving and that a greater percentage of students are fully meeting expectations? For example, while we're outperforming the state in meeting exceeding grade 3 literacy expectations in Tewksbury, 36% of students who are partially meeting grade level expectations in literacy and 12% are not meeting grade level expectations. What systems or practices would you prioritize to ensure instructional quality continues to improve across classrooms, and how would you measure that improvement? And by the way, Dr. Milligan does have these questions in front of her, so it's not.
Which is greatly appreciated.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cutlass, for your question. As I look at your question and I look at how would I work with principals and instructional leaders to ensure that all of our students are fully meeting expectations, along with systems and practices, would I prioritize? When I think about this question, obviously curriculum instruction and assessment come to mind in all the work that we do within a district. When we think about those three areas within the district, that's the heart of the work. So if students are not meeting those expectations, we have to dig into those three areas and see, are there any disconnects? When I think about starting with curriculum and your example of literacy specific, one of the initiatives that the district has supported was the purchasing of a high-quality instructional material that was based on the science of reading. We are now in our third year of that implementation, and as we think about implementation of any new curriculum resource, the first year, teachers and students are unpacking that new curriculum, understanding the intent of the publishers, and really trying to live that curriculum with fidelity. As we go into year two, when we know more about how was the pacing, what were the expectations, then we start to make educational decisions. Is it meeting the needs of our students in this district? And then now as we go into year three, we can start to make educational decisions about how do we want to look at that curriculum resource to ensure that it is meeting the needs of our students. So that would be one of the first places that as we dig through, we would always want to ensure that our curriculum resource is meeting the needs of the students. We do that as we think about the second part of educational work with the assessments. We know that if we're going to use grade 3 as an example, that the curriculum resource does come with assessments within that program. Having done listening sessions with the teachers that were implementing this updated curriculum resource, we know that across the board, some of the assessments are not aligning well with some of the lessons within the curriculum. Therefore, we need to make educational decisions to ensure that the assessments that we're giving to students is giving us the data to truly drive our instructional practices and to see whether or not it's meeting the needs of our students. And that leaves us with the third part, instruction, the heart of what we do with students. When we look at instructional practices, we are always ensuring that the instructional practices within Tier 1, our classrooms, are strong, along with thinking about the multi-tiered systems of supports, thinking about the additional interventions or the skills, strategies, and supports that students need. So as we're thinking through this example around literacy, we have to look at those three component parts along with the students that fall into these categories, that it's not enough to just have a number, but it's really to look into each individual student and see if students aren't making the progress that we are looking for. Are we providing the solid Tier 1 instruction and or additional supports for a student to help them close any gaps between their current reality and where we'd like them to be? And that is always looking at students would be at the proficient or above level within MCAS, because I'm assuming that this is MCAS data. Along with that, though, MCAS shouldn't be the only story that tells our success around our third grade readers. And as we look at that, part of our district strategic plan calls out the need for additional common assessments within the district. We need to be able to triangulate and look at MCAS as a lagging indicator that should confirm our leading indicators of what are we seeing in the classrooms. So building out common assessments along with looking at MCAS data and thinking about screeners such as DIBELS, Hegarty, Foundations, all of those pieces that are going to tell us whether or not students are making the success between that yearly test in time. So the systems and practices in place have to always be examining those 3 areas within a district. And the progress monitoring and using that data to drive instructional decisions is the heart of this work. So I do believe that some of the conversations that we are having about our curriculum resources, especially in grades K through 6, because we know early and often is really where we want to focus that energy for students before age 8. We had listening sessions this year, and I think even through those listening sessions, we have already identified areas in which additional work is needed to look at the curriculum resource, the assessments that is provided us in our instructional practices within the district.
Mr. Cutlass, anything?
No, thank you, Dr. Milligan, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cutlass.
Great, thank you. All right, our next question would be, Ms.
Yeah.
Jones-Smith.
Dr. Milligan, my question is, students in our district have a wide range of learning needs, including our gifted and advanced learners, students receiving special education services, English language learners, and then our students who maybe thrive in the more traditional environment. How will you ensure that our district provides rigorous, inclusive, equitable learning opportunities for all students while addressing these diverse needs? Additionally, how would you maintain consistency and expectations for access while still providing the differentiated supports necessary for each group to be successful? You already touched on a little bit of the special ed audit, but we've seen and we've invested time and resources into that special ed audit. How will you ensure that this district responds to the findings while engaging all stakeholders?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
There's a lot to this question.
Sorry.
Starting with the beginning of the question, how would you ensure our district provides rigorous, inclusive, and equitable learning opportunities? It definitely is one of my core values when we look at providing rigorous, inclusive, and equitable opportunities. That is for all students at all times. And part of my belief system is that we shouldn't necessarily be running separate programs for all of these populations if they're running parallel to the core instruction that everyone deserves access to. So first and foremost, we have to remember that Tier 1 instruction within the classroom is for all. And that, when we're thinking about not just the academic part about it, but we also have to think about the social part, that we want to ensure that students get opportunities with their peers, regardless of their abilities. So if you're thinking about those advanced learners, whether you're thinking about students receive special services, or English language learners, all of those students should have opportunities within the Tier 1 classroom to get that sense of belonging with their peers and counterparts. When we do provide programming, we want to ensure that the programming and the services are a continuation of our Tier 1 and that they're not separate programming in the sense of these students should get something different. They might need services that are more, and some of that might be different, but we shouldn't start with different. So when I look at being equitable, I look at equity as not being equal necessarily. It's what students need, but we will always want to ensure that all students feel that they belong in that Tier 1 classroom. How we can do this is one of the areas we've already identified within our district this year. When we start thinking about how do we universally design learning opportunities for students, we are proactively thinking about the students in our classroom and designing the lessons so that students already have that sense of belonging because they'll have that access to the instruction and the equity being provided the way that they need it. So that should always be first and foremost a driving factor. And we have to understand that that should be a shared vision within the district. When I think about additionally, how would you maintain consistency and expectations and access while still providing that differentiated support, we want to ensure that we do have the additional services in the district for students that need more. But it should always start with first in the classroom. We've invested time and resources into the special ed audit and how we ensure the district responds to the findings. When we received the special ed report last January and we started taking it apart last March, part of that disaggregated information that we got from it was to look at that multi-year plan and see how we can use the strategic plan to really think about all the component parts. For instance, in the special ed audit, thinking about we need clear pathways for families within the district. So that way, as they move through the different transition, again, we want to be a school district, not a district of schools, and that's something that was called out in the audit. Part of the work this year is we've created a committee called the EPIC Committee, Educational Programming Improvement Council. And we've taken that audit, and through that work with teachers on this team, we've looked at the 3 big areas that have to be addressed within the district: reading services, our continuation of services, and interventions. And when you think about how those 2 pieces, the first part of your question and the second part of your question go together, that special ed audit is leading us to understanding how do we have that continuum of services for students, for special education services within the district, consistently and transparently. As we think about our reading services, that actually connects back to Mr. Cutlass's question about where are our literacy scores right now and how are we supporting those students that might not be on grade level. And as we think about all of these pieces together, and my statement of that this should all start in Tier 1, teachers from the district committee have identified that to do interventions well within Tier 1, that they need a toolkit. So when you think about how will you ensure bringing stakeholders to the table, having these conversations and having input from the people that matter most, which are our teachers who are working daily with the students, that's how you ensure success, is because the people that this directly affects should always have a voice at the table to directly impact the decision and direction we are going. So part of that work also would be to think about how we're going to monitor that impact. So we have to hold ourselves accountable with actionable goals, including teachers want a toolkit. When will we build that toolkit? How will we build that toolkit? Where will this toolkit be housed? And then create those timelines to ensure that we're holding tight to the agreed upon benchmarks of how we can make these teachers successful, so that way our students are successful. So that would just be one example of how all of those pieces come together.
Can I do a follow-up? So you mentioned transparency and a lot of moving parts, it seems like, when it comes to pathways and different approaches to not a different curriculum necessarily, but a different depth of how much you go into certain things. How does the communication work with families on that, in your mind?
Sure. Currently, for the advisory committees that we have formed, right now, they're at their infancy stage. So a lot of the communication right now is going from our councils to our staff to look for feedback, to actually create larger plans. So this whole year has really been about stakeholder input from the teacher's perspective around what do we need to do with students. As we think of how to communicate more effectively with families, part of our communications priority in the strategic plan is to have a survey go out to parents around how to not only get involved, what do they would like to see from the district, but also how are we delivering communication. So our communications survey will look at things such as, are the newsletters working? Is the website working for you? Are the other methods of communication? I'm trying to think of all the different buckets. Videos, all of that. But a lot of that's one-way communication, And to your point, what we do need to do a better job of is the two-way communication. And we really need to understand how to get more parents involved. Because when we look at our analytics, even when you look at analytics for the one-way communication, our analytics aren't necessarily high, that people are reading the newsletter and following the Facebook page. So for this community, what do the families in this community need that we can do a better job of that two-way engaged communication? So part of the survey, which we know will probably have limited results, is just one aspect of a communication audit that we're going to be looking for. And we have actually, there's a National Communications and Public Relations school-based consortium that we get a lot of guidance from. So as we think about this communication audit, a survey is one aspect, but we'll be working with creating that multi-year plan as we get that information to engage families in different ways. So we really need to look at how do we get that stakeholder feedback. And right now, I don't think that we have the right methods we're tapping into, and that we'll be digging into that more as part of our communication strategy, the multi-year strategy.
Thank you, appreciate the extra.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Is there some, Katie?
Yes. Hi, Dr. Milligan. I have a budget question. We see rising costs in areas like transportation, out of placement, out of district placements, staffing. What strategies would you implement to address some of those rising costs? And then how would you communicate difficult budget decisions to our stakeholders, like our communities, our families, our staff? There you go. That's it.
Sure. I'm actually going to take the communication part first, because we were just talking about that a little bit more. One of the things when I think about, communicating difficult budget decisions is that, first off, I believe people are able to hear hard news if you've communicated effectively and you haven't misled them. And I think that that's where the rubber hits the road, when you break down trust. So as we start to think about communication and how people want communication, I think that we have to maximize on that, because I do think that in today's time, like you just said, there are going to be difficult budget conversations because of things such as transportation, out-of-district placements, and staffing. As I look at those three buckets, let's take transportation first. As we think about the rising costs in areas such as transportation, we always know that going out to bid, we are always hoping to get the best bid in front of our students, but we know that it's probably going to be more than our last contract. So part of what you can do within a district, and we have done this in the past, I know speaking with Dave Libby, is look at route analysis. How many buses do we really need to run each year? And that is contingent based on, which seniors are graduating in which areas and which roads, where are kindergarten students coming in. So looking at route analysis each year is one way that we can actually look at how can we maximize our fleet and or reduce a bus if needed. We also, and this is something that we do as well, is as we're looking at smaller van runs or out-of-district placement for transportation needs, we look at coordinating with surrounding districts so we can cost share. So those are two practices that we currently have in place that as superintendent I would continue to utilize to look at the rising cost of transportation. We know with fuel costs, we know with the shortage of bus drivers, that transportation costs are going to continue to rise. So we have to think about all those mitigating strategies. As we think about out-of-district placements, again, that comes down to, first and foremost, all of these students started in our district, in our classrooms. And for some reason, why couldn't we meet their needs? Now, I'm not saying that every out-of-district placement isn't warranted. What I'm saying is, from the out-of-district placements, how many of those families had to leave the district because we didn't offer the services that they needed, and or we broke trust with those families and felt that that was their only option. So as we go through and think about out-of-district placements, it's not micromanaging the decisions that have been made, but thinking back to the root of where we start. All these students started in our classrooms at some point. So I will continue to say, when I'm looking at what's going on in Tier 1 classrooms, access and equity, looking at what students need, and really proactively designing learning for students in front of us year to year using the principles of UDL is one of the ways that right from the start, we try to ensure that Tier 1 instruction can meet the needs of most students. We always strive for all, but we know that students are going to need more. Then we want to look up, what's that next level of service that students need? What can we do in the district? What are we currently doing? And then what could we be doing? What is the staffing that we have in place? What is the expertise of our staffing? What do students need? And really understanding each individual student. And as we continue to go up the ladder of services, we have to identify who do we have in place that can help these students and who do we need? And I think that would go to the third bullet of staffing. When we think about staffing and managing rising costs, we have to think about, with attrition, how can we use that as an opportunity to look at, is this position need to be replaced? Or is this a position that we might need another area of the district? So we always would love to stay level funded by keeping the staffing that we have. We never want to reduce staff because it's so hard to get staff back. But we do have to think about hiring and retaining the best teachers. And that's a strategy that all superintendents need to be thinking about. Along with attrition, how do we maximize that FTE within your budget to truly meet the needs of the students currently? And that is an ongoing process of conversations with staff that we might need another school adjustment counselor based on the needs of the students. We might need another BCBA or RBT based on the behavioral needs of our students. But at the end of the day, we hope to be able to use our staff either through training or through utilizing the staffing attrition to get some of the additional positions that we need within our district. We hear our teachers saying that there's additional positions needed to help our students right now. Some of it might be putting in another coach in a district to coach up Tier 1. It might not necessarily be in a specialized service, but it might be teachers saying, I need more help here. So we have to think through hiring, retaining teachers, and then thinking critically around what's the personnel that we currently need moving forward. And that will change with our demographics and our students. But we always want to be responsive to the current needs in front of us. So as we think about managing those rising costs, we really do have to think about what are our options, and investing in staff is our top priority. We have the best teachers and we want to continue to have the best teachers in the district. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, the final question, formal question anyway. This is kind of a question that speaks a little bit to what we know is a snapshot of the district right now. We know that the district is ever changing, but for right now, given your knowledge of our district and with consideration to the implementation of the upcoming facilities assessment and the recent safety and security audit that has been done, how would you approach the implementation of leading a thoughtful process that involves all stakeholders and considers the short and long-term best interests for students in the community? I guess the second part of that would be, as the superintendent, how would you balance and prioritize this work alongside the competing priorities such as the effort to initiate DESE academic mandates, maintaining our facilities, supporting staff in new leadership roles, and serving as a responsible steward of district finances?
Sure.
And that second part is just me pontificating.
Thank you. As we think about the upcoming facilities assessment and safety and security audit and balancing and prioritizing this work along with these competing priorities, all of the decisions and the communication that goes around this always has to start with students in mind, that what's in the best interest of the students. So we have to balance these competing priorities to hold tight to our students at the heart of every decision-making process, whether that's talking about the budget whether that's talking about academic mandates or facilities. We have to think about that as our driving factor. As we consider the implementation of the facility study committee and/or the safety and security audits, I know that when I'm thinking about this thoughtful process that involves the stakeholders, is that I can give you the example of, I'll start with the safety and security audits. That was something that this fall I had firsthand opportunity to participate in. So with the Department of Homeland Security, our building administrators, our SROs, and Mass State Police, we did safety audits at all of our buildings. As we're thinking about that thoughtful process to consider the short and long-term interests of our students, obviously we're meeting with our district security team right now, looking at what can we accomplish right now that's no cost, looking at the high priorities, if there is any, and I'm glad to say there are no high priorities of anything that we should be concerned with, but what can we do and how can we budget for that? And then what would be those priorities that we might have to go to the town with for some of those bigger costs? So we need to look at short-term, low-cost, short-term, manageable costs, and then long-term plans. And while the facilities study committee has done a great job of all the work that they've been doing with the Board of Selectmen and now with our consultant, the facilities assessment and looking at the implementation, those two competing pieces, facilities and safety, facilities would have a thoughtful process of communication, how we're going to come to consensus with what the community would like, and that's going to be an open, transparent process. When it comes to safety and security, some of that information we don't want to necessarily put out for the community. So internally, we want to be making the decisions with the right stakeholder groups, which would be police, fire, municipality, the schools. So I do look at both of them being vitally important, student safety and the facilities of our students for the educational experience. But when I think about when stakeholders are involved, the larger community should be involved in the upcoming facilities assessment and everything that entails, while district security, safety and security should really be the small internal stakeholder group. We never want to put anything out there that might compromise the safety of our students. So while we're thinking about balancing all of these, again, everything always comes down to the students in mind. So as we have to go out to the community with that facilities study committee, we are looking at renovating, additions, building pieces. We have to think about advocating and what we believe from the district's perspective, what's in the best interest of students, and at the end of the day, take in all of the community input and make the best educational decision for students while also balancing the needs of the community.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. We do have, I appreciate your response, two optional questions that I think we do have some time for. One was, are you open to having a couple
Sure.
options? What challenges in the district have you not yet been addressed that you would prioritize? And similarly, are there successes?
Sure. I'll start with successes. From my arrival until today, I definitely can share so many different successes within the district and areas of real strength. We have a very dedicated staff that puts students first. We have a community that values our educational system. That's evident just from 2 building projects in the last 15 years and a third being considered within the community. We have a phenomenal administrative team that always puts their staff and student first. And we have a dedicated, dedicated families that really want the best for their students here in Tewksbury. And that's evident from when you go out into our community events, you see the pride that the students have in their events, you see the parents there, You do see growth and recovery when we look at our major data point right now, which is MCAS. There is recovery happening in the district. So teachers should take stock in that the hard work that they're doing right now is paying off. I would love to be able to look at that, a challenge, which would, a priority area of, we need to continue with the work of common assessments, because at the end of the day, I don't want MCAS to be the only narrative that we talk about for our students. There's a lot more that we need to be talking about in the district, and we need to be able to control the narrative, because if we don't control the narrative, someone's going to fill that in for us. So we do want to highlight what is going on well in the district, in our classrooms, each and every day, for our community, not just our parents that have students in the district, but our community at large, if we want things such as our next facility to be supported, whatever capacity, an upgrade to a facility, or, a renovation, an addition, or a new facility. We need to get that messaging out. So I do think that having communication within our district strategic plan, ensuring in our district strategic plan that it's data-driven in everything that we do for students, that we're bolstering those instructional supports, and then we can celebrate that. I do think that we have a lot of successes, but an area of growth would be, let's share this more publicly with everybody, because the community is very invested in this school district, and that's one of the reasons that Tewksbury drew me to come and apply when the opportunity came back open just 2 years ago. I don't think of anything else. Is there any area you want me to delve deeper into?
I don't think so. I mean, it's more kind of what your take is from the inside, from where you sit, your lens. So, anybody have any thoughts you're hoping she'd address? Communication was a big piece for me, so we covered that well. So,
It's definitely an area that I think that we really need to be thinking differently about, that two-way engagement.
Maybe one more. Sorry.
Sure.
I was thinking, so you just mentioned it just a second ago, the strategic goals for the district. It was a big part of, I guess, all of us took time over the summer to sit through the strategic goals, listen to the plan. There were a number of staff members present. Prior to that, there were working groups, focus groups with teachers, I think aides across the district who wanted to be a part of all of these. Can you maybe speak just a little bit to your perception of how you want to see that strategic plan move forward if you were to step into this position, maybe just a little bit of your ideas there.
One of the things that we've already put in place is, I was thinking about the timing of when we involve stakeholder groups in August and the rollout of the plan quickly after. So one of the changes that we've already made is that, starting with our district advisory council, we asked them what days would work in June for them. And we've gotten that feedback from that stakeholder group, and that will now be going out to the whole district, is that we'd like to start to have those conversations not in August for the school year, but back it up to June. Because as we think about those district goals, we really need to think about all those action steps that we have put into place. It's all worthy, but what we're finding is that as we think about that district strategic plan, we have to think about human capital and capacity and budgetary impacts. And we are already starting to adjust some of the dates, knowing that we have a great chronological order of events that have to happen. But we also have to realize that human capacity and capital will drive the strategic plan. And when teachers are teaching all day, some of our goals, our timelines had to back up. We want to ensure that if we're going to do this, we want to do it right. So I always believe in, I think some of you heard me say this, I'd rather slow down to speed up and do it well. I am a true believer in a collaborative process. I do not want false starts in any of our areas. And that is where a lot of the planning this year in our strategic plan has been a planning year. Really taking the teachers, talking about what's happening, trying to get feedback from all of that, and creating a succinct plan that is purposeful and manageable for them so that we can continue to grow in our student outcomes. This is a great district, and I do believe that we are in a very good place, but I believe that we have the capacity to be great. And that's not going to come overnight, but the district has been chipping away at all of that. And I don't think that we necessarily have the data sources in place that show our true story, hence why in our data-driven decision-making, when you look at that goal 1, it's inventorying normed assessments, common assessments, really diving deeper into the analysis, and then also looking for a data platform that can help us tell our story better. So we know that's going to take a few years to get there. But there are a lot of successes that I don't think necessarily show through our avenues right now. So I do think that I'd love to continue with those 4 buckets as is. That is the heart of the work of any district. I don't care what you name it, but it's following the data, ensuring success for all students, ensuring that our facilities are safe and meeting the needs of our students and our staff, and then communicating more effectively. So those 4 buckets, I believe, should continue to be the driving factor in our strategic plan moving forward. And then the actions, we can continue to grow and go deeper in each area, because once we have our communication survey, it's going to give us more data to understand, okay, how can we do this better? Every district is different. Parents are different, communities are different, but what do the Tewksbury families want? What does the larger community want? I know when I was talking with municipalities, even thinking about, should we have quarterly meetings across all departments, and how can we really leverage each other more effectively? So at the end of the day, I want to elevate the great work, and again, co-create that, where should we go together?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I ask a follow-on question to that? Thank you. So you talk about adding in these common assessments, and I do agree that we cannot just depend on MCAS assessments. We need to triangulate that data on some other forward-thinking assessments. But talking about that along with human capacity, how would you support the staff in adding in these types of assessments that really we do need, but knowing that they have that human capacity element?
Sure. So we can speak directly to that. So all of our professional development work this year has been around the 3 areas: common assessment, language objectives for all students, along with understanding UDL, Universal Design for Learning. And as we thought about the common assessment work, all of our time that we have for professional development time has been coaching and explaining the component parts of what makes an assessment common and how to collect that data, along with, where will you have those conversations. And honestly, our goal for this year for every department and or grade level was just 2, because we know to do, again, slow down to speed up. Let's go through the process with 2. Let's get really good with those 2. And as we start to have the conversation about how is this impacting our teaching and learning for students, then we'll continue to build out. And remember, not every assessment needs to be common. We want to show points in time that we can tell the story to ensure that when MCAS comes up, we know how many students might still be in that not meeting and partially meeting category. We should know that. It should never be a gotcha that we don't know.
Right.
So start small, build all the time around it, so that way we can really think about those areas and then grow with that. So slow down to speed up. So we've only asked departments and grade levels to look for just 2.
Good.
So
Thank you.
All right, before I ask for closing remarks, anything else? Okay. If you'd like to share anything in closing?
Sure. So as I close tonight, I want to step back from the questions and the talking points. I've spent the last 2 years earning your trust, not as just a candidate, but as a colleague on this committee. I've sat in our schools, I've worked alongside our principals, supported our teachers, shown up for the students in ways that an assistant superintendent can. Tonight, I'm asking for the opportunity to show up in a bigger way. The questions you asked me were very specific, to be honest, and to demonstrate that I can understand the complexities of leading this particular district at this particular moment. I hope I've done that, not by giving you polished answers, but by showing you how I actually think and what I actually believe. So here's what I attest and believe. I believe the Tewksbury Public Schools has something genuinely worth protecting: a community that trusts its schools, a staff that cares deeply, and a foundation of stability that not every district is fortunate enough to have. My first job as your superintendent is to honor all of that. I believe the students who are not yet fully meeting expectations, that third grader that we might have talked about, the student on an IEP navigating inclusion, English language learners becoming academic language alongside content, those students are not just data points to be managed, but they're the reason this work matters. My permanent job is to make sure our systems never stop reaching them. And I believe that the leadership in our public school district is a privilege, one that carries an obligation to be transparent when things are hard, to be present when people are uncertain, and to make decisions that put students first, even when that is the most difficult path. I am ready to lead this work. I am ready to earn this community's trust every single day, and I am ready to serve as the next superintendent of the Tewksbury Public Schools. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay. So, for the committee, I think, I can, we have some options on how we can move forward. We could conclude our meeting. We could decide we want to deliberate tonight. We have a meeting for tomorrow night. Do you want to take a break? Do you want to?
I would like to make a motion to take a 5-minute break just to let Dr. Milligan step out, maybe go to the bathroom and collect ourselves. And I would suggest that maybe we come back to open session to have some discussions.
And then we'll have this one. Okay. We'll take a 5-minute break.
Do you need a second on that?
With a second.
I would second that.
We have a motion and a second. And if we take a 5-minute break, there'll be no deliberation during that time, please. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Dr. Miller. Okay, and we return at 6:59 PM. Thank you to anybody who's following along for our short break. So we return, and what is the will of the committee? How we want to proceed tonight?
What options do we have?
So, in terms of our deliberation, for the superintendent, we have open deliberation. So we could at this time take up the deliberation on how we want to move forward with Dr. Milligan as a candidate, or we could table the decision and utilize the time that we have saved tomorrow and meet tomorrow. If we decide tomorrow is not the day we want to do it and push that back, we could plan another meeting and deliberate at a different time.
I'm speaking for myself. I'm comfortable with moving forward tonight, at deliberating, and I guess we'll be making our decision tonight, voting on her up or down. I'm comfortable with that. Again, I'm speaking for myself.
Or we could open conversation and see where that goes. Mr. Cutlass?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. McCartney. I'm comfortable with going forward tonight.
Yeah, me too. I think that pushing my head down. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess at this point, we can open the conversation. We can kind of, do you want to have some open discussion in
Yeah.
terms of your thoughts on the interview, the questions, the responses? Do you want to just have open discussion on whether we think Dr. Milligan meets the requirement of the leadership profile that we, worked so hard to get some stakeholder feedback on, that, that our vision for what we're looking for in our next leader?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I think I was going to say, based on the questions, I know we put together, I feel, a well-rounded list of questions to really hone in on the leadership profile. I think she did, in my mind, a satisfactory job of hitting all of the points that I wanted to hear about in terms of how the year will progress, how the summer will flow. It seems that there would be a somewhat seamless transition while keeping, the strategic goals were a big part for me. Keeping the strategic goals that are in place, and putting her own, I guess, spin on how to achieve the numerous tasks in there. I think that based on what she talked about, she has a slight different approach to certain things that I find refreshing and look forward to seeing come to fruition if we move forward with her. I think she did a pretty great job of hitting those points.
Yeah, from my perspective, I think, any organization, you could hope for the person who's in the number 2 job to be able to step into the role of the number 1 position. That to some degree we've been not interviewing her for the past 2 years, but we've been learning about her for the past 2 years. Tonight's not the only night, right? So it's not as if she's an unknown. And I agree. I think she answered the questions well. Lots of the words we want to see, and the things we all talk about. I think she'd be an excellent superintendent for us.
Yeah, I like what you just said about the second in command, basically preparing for the first. That's how it is in where I am too, that a lot of times, you're working your way up in an organization. And if you look at the administrative team as an organization, that is exactly what she's done, whether here or elsewhere.
And she has 12 years of his assistant.
Correct.
Yeah. Not just the 2 with us.
Right. All right. And I think the 2 have given her a taste of, like she said, what the district needs, capitalizing on some of our successes. I like her communication plan to start to share some of that. I think that's something we've all been talking about for a while. I know that you've brought communication up many times. I think that getting that out to the community will go a long way for the district. I think that was a great point, Chris, about that.
Yeah, and your comment about this really isn't like a 2-year interview, but it really was,
Sure.
right? If she didn't do a great job, then we wouldn't be having this conversation now. I think she came in with an outside perspective. I think that she's brought a lot of things from that outside perspective into her current role. I think that she'll continue to bring them into a superintendent role. I do think that she has been working to be preparing herself for a superintendent role of Tewksbury. I think she'd be a good fit for the community. I think that she's clearly very polished. She knows her policy. She knows the requirements of education and inside and out. So I would be comfortable with it too.
Yeah, found her to have a very stacked resume, a variety of different backgrounds, experience in different areas, and I've seen on several occasions those come to the forefront of a lot of meetings that we had, whether it's through the district security team or some of our joint labor management meetings. I've seen her policy, her ethics, her ethical values come through in some of those.
I think we certainly cast a wide net, and in doing that, giving people anonymous opportunity to give us written feedback, in-person feedback, Mentimeter feedback, and then prior to deciding what direction to go in, and then once we thought, let's go internal and see if we have an internal candidate to match, then announcing once we knew who the candidate was, please come, and people knew who the candidate was, and give us more feedback that could have been anonymous through multiple different stakeholders. If people felt strongly in an overwhelming direction, which in a lot of times we did get overwhelming responses in a very positive direction, I think that spoke itself, that the people that have worked with her in all sorts of capacities. Students gave her great feedback. We've gotten just good feedback about her. So that carries a lot of weight with me. I think that has meant a lot. So I think I do appreciate the way that we went about this process. I think had we gone through this process and had gotten a significant amount of really difficult things to hear, I would be saying right now, why don't we hold off and go in a different direction? And maybe we should, at this point, it's only March 11th, let's put out some applications externally and see what we can see who's out there. I don't want to see who's out there. I think we have the candidate for our next superintendent because, you know, she cares deeply about Tewksbury, she cares deeply about our students, and she believes in our staff. She believes that she can bring our district from good to great, and I want to give her a chance to do it. So.
And I would say, I mean, we did have a ton of formal ways to provide feedback before and after a candidate was announced. And I believe that there were other folks internally who had all the right qualifications but did not go for it. But even more so besides the formal feedback, I would say that all of us have gotten a lot of unsolicited feedback all the way throughout the district. When we're at events, people coming up to us saying, you know, she's giving us that positive, reinforcing feedback about Dr. Milligan as a candidate. So that even more so than, you know, the formal ways that we looked for feedback was more impactful to me, at least, too.
I think some of the changes that she has brought to Tewksbury, I've really appreciated. I've appreciated this year's strategic goals. I think you could see her influence. You could see her in some of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, our current superintendent has done an outstanding job in so many ways, but you could see her where she had some impact. So I think, you know, we're lucky that she wants to stay with us. And, you know, we have a lot of needs that are coming in the administrative level. that our administrators are gonna have to work hard to figure out who the right fits are. And so I think, you know, when some of the things that we talk about in our leadership profile is, you know, looking for somebody who can retain staff. And I was really happy to hear her talk about wanting to retain good teachers and good staff. I assume that translates to central office because, you know, we've got some people that, you know, are leaving the district, you know, due to retirement. There's a lot of, you know, historical knowledge that's going to be going with them. And I think replacing those people is going to be really hard. And she's going to need to mentor and be a good support person for them. I think she's going to need mentorship. The program that Mrs. Terry O'Regan went through was outstanding, and I think that's something that we should consider for her as well. She's going to need good mentorship and good support as she tries to support some of the leadership, if we go in that direction with Nancy. Jamie, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with most everything that you guys said, and she did a very good job in that interview. Answered the questions in a very good way, and I like her resume. She's got experience as an assistant in a number of different districts, and I think that's very important. So I think she'd be a good fit, and I like what you just said about the mentoring program too. I think that's valuable for the new superintendents, but I think she has a lot of experience, and she would do a very good job in that district. So, thank you.
Madam Chair, would you entertain a motion at this time to move forward with Nancy as the offering a position? I guess what would our next step be after that?
So we would have to, yeah, I guess you'd make a motion to move forward, and then we'd have a second that, and then we would enter into contract negotiations with her, pending contract negotiations.
So motion to, I'm just talking out loud, so motion to formally offer her the position? Is that how that would?
Yeah,
You have to check resumes, so we need any references?
yeah, check references, and then, you know, pending contract negotiations.
Yeah.
Okay. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion at this time to move forward with the steps necessary to offer Nancy Milligan, Dr. Milligan, the position as superintendent.
I would second that.
Okay, and Mrs. Anderson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Ms. Moncada and Mr. Cutlass?
Aye.
And then I vote aye as well. Okay, so I'll be in touch with Dr. Milligan to see if she accepts, and then also, you know, I will see if Mrs. B. Johnny Smith, if you can work with me on that with our legal,
Yes.
to be sure that we're doing this right. If we need to take a different type of vote or motion, or if we did this wrong or incorrect, we'll be redoing it at our meeting on the 18th.
Yeah.
Okay. Madam Chair, for point of reference, are we all set with canceling tomorrow's meeting?
Yes.
Is that a formal?
No, I can just, Mrs. Caliendo, I guess we could just cancel tomorrow's meeting. Thank you. All right,
And then for our meeting on the 18th, we're hoping between now and then on the 18th, is a signing or?
we'll just see where,
Yeah, okay.
who knows?
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's work to be done. But, no, thank you guys all for your work. I want to thank the community. I want to thank anybody that supported us and helped us in this process. You know, we did ask a lot of some people to, you know, take time out of their lives to show up. Staff who came outside of their workday, met us here, did Mentimeters. Ms. Bresnahan, you put some time in, as staff, as, you know, a resident, all the things, you know, it is invaluable. I think sometimes people will feel as though they do not, that their opinions, that their thoughts don't matter, and they do. They really, really do. I don't know how to say that. I don't know how to earn your trust to say that. I don't know how to make you believe that. it matters because, we read it, we see it, we hear it, and sometimes your thoughts and your opinions are cumulative. And I wouldn't spend a snowstorm in this room for an entire day waiting to hear for anybody who shows up if I didn't think it wasn't important. I wouldn't spend my time sending emails, sending letters, sending all sorts of stuff if I didn't think it was important. I don't know how else to say it. I hope you believe it. I'd like to make one announcement on behalf of the students who are hoping that this message can get out there about Sunday. There's a little special thing happening at the TD Garden, but there's some hockey happening, and they want for people to know that if you want to buy tickets, you have to go through the TD Garden box office Ticketmaster. The boys' game is at 3. They're playing Canton. The girls' game is at 5:30, and they're playing Archbishop Williams. And the Garden is cashless, so bring a card. So I promised that I would make that announcement. So I'm happy that we were able to kind of get this done, so we can move on in the district to we've got a lot of business to get done. So this is just one big thing to happen.
It's the first puzzle piece.
You want to call out our future?
Future meetings, March 12th is canceled. March 18th, public budget hearing at 5, and then following that, immediately after is our regular school committee meeting. Anything else?
No?
Okay.
Do you need a motion? So motion to adjourn.
A second.
Okay, and we are adjourning. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Nick?
Okay, it's 7:16.